Hello guys, how are we doing? Today I'll be covering the top 10 mistakes I see in ranked play, especially after the Season 3 split, where a couple of people have been put down a little bit and the lobbies are really varied. I'm going to be covering some mistakes made generally in just like day-to-day gameplay, some hardpoint bits, control, and then S&D as well. So I'm going to be covering all sorts of game modes and things you guys can maybe fine-tune yourself a little bit just to improve your gameplay, maybe by a couple of %, but that all adds up. Before we get into it, however, I just wanted to say that the gameplay you're watching here is 37-17 with a sub on Hydro Hardpoint. It's an absolute banger of a gameplay, so make sure you guys stay to the very end. If at least not for the tips, but for the inspiring gameplay you're seeing on the screen right now. But without further ado, let's crack on with the first tick I have for you. As I say, they're all valuable. Make sure you stay to the end because you might learn something. First things first, to do with communication, is comm at the earliest point convenient. I hear way too many comms far too late when you've already died and it is filled with other bits and bobs and rage and it's all a bit of messy. What were those shots, by the way? I don't know what I was doing. Anyway, so yeah, as soon as you see an enemy, even whilst you're shooting them, communicate it to the team. They can help you. It's the earliest point. They know exactly where they are at that exact point. It's ideal and makes the comms clean. Like, you know the callouts. You don't have to be like, oh, how's he kill me? How's he kill me? Just say the comm. Top ruins, bottom ruins, P3. You know, that's going to help your team hugely. It might not benefit your own gameplay and your own stat lines quite so much, but generally speaking, it's gonna help the overall team win more games. Next thing I wanted to cover as another generalized tip is I see way too many people sprinting far too much around the map. I think a lot of people play with auto attack sprint, which is absolutely fair enough. But the downside of that is you're just running into gunfights, which means that you're not ready for them, and you will also lose the gunfight because at the end of the day, a lot of people pre-aim. So I would recommend learning the common spots, putting your hours in, and pre-aim where you think the enemy are going to be. Don't run around like a headless chicken because you will lose gunfights. It takes so long for you to stop sprinting and hold your gun up and then shoot, especially if someone's already pre-aimed. So make sure you guys are practicing that pre-aim. You're going to see me doing it a fair amount, even though I don't even know if anyone's there. I sort of know the common places where people are. I even pre-fire it sometimes. Do that, you'll catch them off guard, and you'll win those gunfights. They're not even gunfights at the point because you're going to just be killing them far too quickly because you're ADSing already. The third general tip I want to cover is just generally use your nades. I see far too many people, especially since this Season 3 split, on rank play at the moment. I see far too many people not using their nades and stuns. Summit Methods said in the breakdown, I don't know if you guys watched that, but basically he said you should not be dying with a stun and a nade in your back pocket. Use them when you can, especially on hardpoint. I think S&D is a little bit more different because you want to sort of time your nades unless you're playing for spawn cutoffs or whatever. But generally speaking, that's such a trolly death, by the way. Generally speaking, you want to be using your nades, even if you're sat on a hill and you're not sure where anyone is. Throw a dead nade at a cutoff. It means that they can't push you at that exact moment, and if they are, it gets them weak, and then it's a free kill. Use your stuns, use your nades, and it will benefit the team. You'll see me in the gameplay here. I'm stunning over and nading over. I'm not necessarily sure where they are, but worst case scenario, it just hits their trophy, and then teammates throw a trophy, another nade, trophy's dead. A trophy can only take 3 hits to tacks or throwables, which means that if 2 of you spawn in and you throw a nade, the trophy's going to die. Not sure if a trophy can die, it's not quite alive, but anyway. And another tip just alongside that as another sort of side section is throw your stuns first. So for example, if your stun is the throwable that does eventually destroy the trophy, your nade will then be impactful and do damage. Whereas if you throw your nade first, it will kill the trophy and you're left with just a stun that actually hits on, but at the end of the day it doesn't damage them, you just end up stunning them. The next tip we're going to be covering is more related to hardpoint. So when I see a lot of people rotating, which is absolutely fabulous, and getting map control and sitting on the hill ready, but do not get on the hill without getting the overall map control. I see far too many people sort of rotating, sat in the hill, waiting without clearing around the back, clearing the spawns, because at the end of the day, you're rotating for the spawns. You're not rotating for the hill. That's very short-term goals. You want to make sure that you're rotating, covering the back spawns, clearing anyone out, because at the end of the day, if you're sat on hill and you've got an enemy team back at the spawn behind you, maybe not on hill, but somewhere blocking the spawns, you die, you're going to be spawning in Narnia. You're going to be miles away, and they're going to get the benefit of that. You need to clear not just the hill, but the area around the hill before hopping it. It's not even when rotating. You just generally, you don't want to hop on it until you know where the enemy are going to be coming from, or you've got a couple of dead. So otherwise, they're just going to get free info because they're going to know you're on the hill, and then it just doesn't bode well. The next tip I have for Hardpoint is don't give up map control for free. So you're going to see a little picture here of Zarqua spawns. So for example, just as a little brief background, red team are holding P2, which is circled in orange, which means that the spawns are either back P2, but they can't spawn there because it's blocked by the number 1 arrow bottom right. So they can either spawn P3 or P5, circled in blue. Number 3, arrow at the top, the red one, they've spawned there. Now, we'll see a lot of people in that scenario run all the way back to P2 and try and hold it from the point. However, if they stay at P1, where number 3 currently is, the whole of the enemy team, no matter where the kills are got, they will spawn, as long as number 4 doesn't push too far up, they will spawn at the bottom of this map here, like where I've circled in P5. And what that does for the team, it enables everyone to focus to one side of the map. You can hold a good cutoff. So you've got here P3 watching the cross, they can put some damage out. P4 can challenge one hit and ruins. P4, what am I saying? Arrow 4. Arrow 1 blocking spawns and then also covering number 4, and then number 2's just sat on the hill. The number 2 shouldn't really need to take any engagements here, and what this does is two things. It makes the enemy team miles away from touching the hill. It makes them spawn where you need them to be, so you know where they're going to be spawning, and at the end of the day you're taking the gunfights away from the hill. Say if number 4 or number 3 lose their gunfights here, where do they spawn? They'll spawn back P2. And then it's another gunfight away from the hill. They're meeting in the middle away from the hill at that point. The second thing that's happening here is because number 3 is this far pushed up, they won't spawn P3 behind him where the top blue circle is. They can't spawn there. And that's where the next hill is. So instead of pulling back, P3 staying there is absolutely huge. He sort of gets spawns for new. He stops them spawning that new directly on him. He can see the whole cross across the map to the old hard point, and can provide an absolute funnel for the enemy to fill into for the team to pick them off. Simple as that. The next tip I'm going to have for you guys is number 6. Fighting for 20 seconds or so is not worth losing a setup for 30 plus seconds on new. I understand it's very tempting. You've spawned somewhat near the hill. Pushing that 20 seconds of hill time is great if you get it. I mean, it depends on the score in the game, but let's pretend we're early on or sort of mid-maps or something. I'd much rather see the team leave the 20 seconds, let the enemy have the 20 seconds, and full setup at new. If you've got a full setup like the one I've just shown you there, you can get a free 30, 40 seconds on the hill before being broken, and that 40 seconds is far more valuable than the 20 seconds of scrap, plus potentially losing the rotation, pushing old. The next thing I want to cover is you only need one guy on hill. As established by the screenshot I put in, I'm going to be using that a lot in this. You only need one guy on the hill. Only one person can be capturing the hardpoint at a time. I understand it looks good for your stat record to have a little bit more time, but at the end of the day, one person on the hill is enough. The rest should be playing around the map, not even letting the enemies get anywhere near the hill. They should be taking the gunfights away from the hill, ensuring that the teammate on the hill doesn't have to engage with anyone. They've got that hill for free, while you guys are all out there slaying, being annoying, taking the gunfights where they don't expect it. This is a nice little peek, by the way. Just referring to the gameplay there. Sorry. Back to the tips. What number are we? So the next thing I want to say is we'll move on to sort of the S&D things anymore going forward here. So the first thing I see a lot of is when it's a 2v1 situation or a 3v1, for example, or even a 4v2, I see the team with the majority people, so say, for example, the team with 2 in a 2 versus 1, they split up. I get split up, you cover more of the map, that's great. At the end of the day, you can get picked off one by one, and that does not mean you're going to win the round. What you need to be doing instead of that is instead holding hands with whatever player that is left alive and playing for the trade. As long as you don't get 2p, so that's a huge thing. But at the end of the day, you're playing together, you're checking the corners, you're making sure that your gunny's on point, and as a result, you are going to be able to kill that one guy in that 2 versus 1 situation. By the way, I'm an absolute tear. I just hit a 10 kill streak while in the hill, while defending a point. I mean, God. Another S&D tip I want to cover is I see a lot of people off round 1 just rushing, and that's great. Like, that's perfect if you're playing a team that aren't quite competent, aren't quite coordinated, but you will suffer the consequences as soon as you start to play a team who actually know what they're doing. Instead, you need to play for info, peek, shoulder, do what needs to be done to get info without dying, playing your life. From there, you can establish a plan and work from that. I mean, once you've gotten into a couple of rounds, you sort of know what the enemy team do, you know where the players sort of play, and from there you can make an executive call and say, right, let's all full push A, for example, on LSE low, like full stack that. But at the end of the day, you do not want to get caught out. You don't know what the enemy's tendencies are just yet, so you don't want to be making silly plays. As I say, making obnoxious plays on round 1 might work against the worst teams, but good teams are going to have everything covered, and you're just going to get caught off guard. So the final tip I have for you is a control tip. And you guys are probably going to agree with me. You probably see it a lot, but stack the point. Like, even if you don't have fall down, let's say, for example, you're on hotel, you're hitting B, the one next to P4, the one outside bedroom. All 4 of you have you've got bedroom control. If you get 2 down, stack the point. The other 2, what are they going to do? They're not going to kill all 4 of you off the point, are they? You stack the point, there's 4 of you there, you can watch every single angle covered because there's still 4 of you alive, and at the end of the day, they push one direction, 2 of them are going to chow, you get the trade, and then you're still on the point. I understand, I see a lot of people pushing spawns and whatnot, but at the end of the day, if it's a 4v2 on point, you're just going to have to take it. And you trust your teammates to get the trades, and from there, you're going to win more control rounds. Disgusting. And breathe. So that's going to do it for the game. I hope that's going to do it for the tips. Hopefully you guys found it somewhat valuable and enjoy the gameplay in the process. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch you in a bit. Ciao.
Massively outslayed.
Yeah.
We got a dub! How much do I get? What do you reckon?
27. I got
27. 6,620.
I love the sub, mate. I love using